Dictation 4. Ready? The inspiration and outcome of a reforming movement ought to be freedom and a generous spirit, not niggling restrictions and regulations. The present economic system concentrates initiative in the hands of a small number of very rich men. Those who are not capitalists have almost always very little choice as to their activities. When once they have selected a trade or profession, they are not part of the power that moves the mechanism, but only a passive portion of the machinery. Despite political democracy, there is still an extraordinary degree of difference in the power of self direction belonging to a capitalist and to a man who has to earn his living. Economic affairs touch men's lives at most times much more intimately than political questions. At present, the man who has no capital usually has to sell himself to some large organization, such as a railway company. For example, he has no voice in its management and no liberty in politics except what his trade union can secure for him. If he happens to desire a form of liberty which is not, though important, by his trade union, he is powerless. He must submit or starve. Exactly the same thing happens to a professional man. Probably a majority of journalists are engaged in writing for newspapers whose politics they disagree with. Only a man of wealth can own a large newspaper, and only an accident can enable the point of view or the interest of those who are not wealthy to find expression in a newspaper. A large part of the best brains of the country are in the civil service, where the condition of their employment is silence about the evils which cannot be concealed from them. A nonconformist minister loses his livelihood if his views displease his congregation. A member of parliament loses his seat if he is not sufficiently supple or sufficiently stupid to follow or share all the turns and twists of public opinion. In every walk of life, independence of mind is punished by failure more and more as economic organizations grow larger and more rigid. It is surprising that men become increasingly docile, increasingly ready to submit to dictation and to forego the right of thinking for themselves. Yet, along such lines, civilization can only sink into a Byzantine immobility. Fear of destitution is not a motive out of which a free creative life can grow. Yet, it is the chief motive which inspires the daily work of most wage earners, the hope of possessing more wealth and power than any man ought to have, which is the corresponding motive of the rich, is quite as bad in its effects. It compels men to close their minds against justice and to prevent themselves from thinking honestly on social questions, while in the depths of their hearts they uneasily feel that their pleasures are bought by miseries of others. The injustice of destitution and wealth alike ought to be rendered impossible. Then a great fear would be removed from the lives of the many, and hope would have to take on a better form in the lives of the few. But security and liberty are only the negative conditions for good political institutions. When they have been won, we need also the positive condition, encouragement of creative energy. Security alone might produce a smug and stationary society. It demands creativeness as its counterpart in order to keep alive the adventure and interest of life and the movement toward perpetually new and better things. There can be no final goal for human institutions. The best are those that most encourage progress toward others. Still better, without effort and change, human life cannot remain good. It is not a finished utopia that we ought to desire, but a world where imagination and hope are alive and active. It is a sad evidence of the mankind has suffered from excessive toil that his heavens have usually been places where nothing ever happened or changed. Fatigue produces the illusion that only rest is needed for happiness, but when men have rested for a time, boredom drives them to renewed activity. For this reason, a happy life must be on in which there is activity. If it is also to be a useful life, the activity ought to be, as far as possible, and creative. Finished.